Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, before we get into the stuff that is going to be in this episode, I just want to give a quick little small ramble thing for a couple of reasons. One, I am recording this on June 26, 2021, and the reason why that date's important is because that is the date of the birth of Salvador Allende. For those who don't know who Salvador Allende is, he is the Chilean president that was overthrown by Augusto Pinochet. And in celebration of his birthday, I decided to watch a documentary about the Chilean coup and, just whatever. The documentary is called the Santiago Files, and it's really good. I really liked it. It gives a lot of very good information and gives me a newfound appreciation for Allende. Didn't know much about him before. Now I can say I do know a bit about him, and yeah, I think he's pretty cool. I like him. And it gives me a newfound hatred of Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger. Go check it out if you want. It's free on the streaming service Tubi. I'm not sponsored. Why would I be sponsored? Especially considering Tubi's free. So yeah, watch it when you can. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. The first news story is actually a continuation from the last episode. The last episode was the very controversial Julian Assange episode. Well, a new piece of development has come in the Assange case. Apparently, a key witness has admitted to lying in his indictment on Assange. Okay, so here's how it goes. A major witness in the United States Department of Justice case against Julian Assange has admitted to fabricating key accusations in the indictment against the WikiLeaks founder. The witness, who has documented history with sociopathy and has received several convictions for sexual abuse of minors and a wide-ranging financial fraud, made the admission in a newly published interview in Stundon, where he also confessed to having continued his crime spree whilst working for the Department of Justice and FBI, receiving a promise of immunity from prosecution. The man in question, Sigurdur Ingi Thordarson, was recruited by U.S. authorities to build a case against Assange after misleading him to believe that he was previously a close associate of his. In fact, he had volunteered on a limited basis to raise money for WikiLeaks in 2010, but was found to have used the opportunity to embezzle more than $50,000 from the organization. Julian Assange was visiting Thordarson's home country of Iceland around this time due to his work at the Icelandic media and members of parliament, preparing the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, a press freedom organization that produced a parliamentary resolution supporting whistleblowers and investigating journalism. So basically, he said that he was, he claimed that he was instructed by Julian Assange to commit computer intrusions in Iceland, and he did not. That's literally it. He said that Assange told me to hack this thing for him, and in fact, that was not the case. They also lied about the fact of his age. He was 28 at the time, but they referred to him as a teenager. So yeah, it turns out one of the big cases against Julian Assange has just been completely been made up. So yeah, I don't know how this information is going to continue, but let's see how that develops Assange's case. Okay, the next story is revolving around COVID-19. In fact, these next few stories are actually going to revolve around Latin American countries because, Latin America's pretty cool. Anyways, here is one thing about Cuba. They have been making their own COVID vaccine called the Abdala vaccine, and that vaccine has a 92% efficiency against COVID. Now, many people are actually parading this around oh yay, hooray, Cuba did a good thing. And it's yes, of course. But I also found it weird that a lot of the same people who pushed this were also similar people who were pushing COVID denial and stuff. But of course it's whatever anti-US NATO or whatever is against Western media powers is of course going to be good. So if they develop a good COVID vaccine, COVID's legit. But when when US media develops bad COVID vaccine, that means that COVID's fake and blah blah blah. Anyways, now let's move on to the next story. An update on another previous episode, Nicaragua. There is apparently now a fifth presidential candidate detained in Nicaragua, Miguel Mora. He has been detained on Sunday and accused of committing acts that threaten national sovereignty, according to a statement from the police. That's basically what all of the opposition candidates have been accused of. They've all been accused of the same law violation. There's a specific law in place that claims that them organizing their political groups is trying to delegitimize the government, and that is what Ortega has been using to try and jail all these people. Now, as it stands right now, the only two opposition candidates that remain are George Enriquez and who's the other guy? The guy who was the farmer guy. Those two, which I actually ironically stated are the two most, I guess, reasonable opposition candidates. Like I said, I don't really know much about their platform, but one is an indigenous rights advocate and the other one's a farmer advocate, so my guess is they are probably more favorable in their opposition to Ortega than, like, business owners and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to be happening in Nicaragua, but I'm going to take a guess and say that Daniel Ortega is going to pull through by a slim margin. I don't know if he's going to make it this one. But anyways, now let's move on to another Latin American country, Mexico. Mark your calendars, folks, because AMLO is fulfilling a campaign promise. AMLO has decided that he is now pushing for the referendum to put all former presidents, with the exception of one, on trial. Now you might say, why only 5 of the 6 remaining presidents? Very simple. Luis Echeverria is 99. Putting him on trial now is really irrelevant. However, the other ones have it's not like Echeverria doesn't have any reasons to go to jail, but he's just too old. Why would he need to go to jail at this point? And AMLO has basically given all of his reasons for putting all the people in jail. Why should Salinas go to jail? Because he gave all the goods of the nation and the people of Mexico to his close friends. Basically, he privatized a lot of industries, and that's why he wants to sentence him. Why should Zedillo go to jail? Because with Foba Poroa, he converted the private debts of a few into public debt, and we have been paying that debt for 30, 40 years, basically bailing out banks during times of crisis. Like, that's basically what it is. Like, bailing out banks instead of people during economic crises is what he says should sentence him to jail. Why should Vicente Fox go to jail? Because he deceived the people, because with the efforts of many, he came to the presidency and became a traitor to democracy. He has confessed that he loaded the dice in the 2006 election to impose Felipe Calderon. So basically, the rigging of the 2006 election, which is 100% fair and reasonable. Why should Felipe Calderon go to jail? Because he unleashed war, declared war on crime without addressing the causes, and massacres were carried out. There were instructions to finish off the wounded, and there are the data and the levels of lethality and clashes. Yeah. Basically, he's going to jail for the drug war. Okay, now, Peña Nieto. For the obvious acts of corruption, there is a protected witness, the one who was the director of Pemex, declaring that by superior orders to approve the so-called structural reforms, especially the energy reform, money was given to legislators of the parties and that are now opposition leaders. So basically, his privatization of Pemex that was basically like a corrupt deal to give, people who gave him money to, basically corruption. And I am 100% supportive of this. Lock them all up. They should all be put in jail and throw away the key. In fact, Biden should probably consider a referendum like that in the United States as well. Lock up Carter, Clinton, Bush, Trump. Oh boy, that'd be amazing. That's of course never gonna happen, but a guy can dream, am I right? So anyways, now let's move on to some bad news. Derek Chauvin is sentenced to 22.5 years in prison for the murder of George Floyd. He was supposed to go to jail for 40 years. He's instead getting a little over half than that. And there's a good indication, not even a good indication, a bad indication, I guess you could say. I mean, no, that's not even grammatically correct, but an indication, just based on how these cases work, that he will probably not serve his full sentence and will more than likely get maybe even less than this, like a fourth of this sentence. So basically, he's just gonna get a part of what he's supposed to get. So this particular case, like Keith Ellison said, I mean, ain't justice. Justice would be him getting his desserts, but he didn't. Speaking of bad news, Senate Republicans have blocked the Democrats' sweeping voting rights bill. They filibustered it, making it lose the 60 votes it needed to advance. The final vote was 50-50. Yeah, the filibuster really turned out so well for them. This is going so amazing. I'm really feeling the Democrats taking this House and the Senate. I'm really feeling it. When Joe Biden said get these 2 Georgia senators in, I'm really feeling it now. Dems and GOP are to blame on this for 2 separate reasons. GOP, of course, for blocking the bill. They get the brunt of the blame. But Democrats also get a tiny bit of blame because it's like, bruh, you had easy wins that you could have done, but you didn't win those. Screw you. But anyways, like, it's just dumb. These bills are just like freaking, come on. And this next bit is half and half bad news. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so House Democrats have officially launched a brand new PAC to protect incumbents from progressive primary challengers. The PAC is called Team Blue, and their whole spiel is literally protect incumbents from groups like Justice Democrats. The PAC is being spearheaded by Hakeem Jeffries, Josh Gothmeier, and Terry Sewell. Now, Hakeem is trying to BS his way through it by basically being like, oh, we're trying to do this to protect our wonderful members. And they, in this article, even goes so far as to say, because the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, or DCCC, does not engage in primaries, that is a flat-out lie. The DCCC has engaged very heavily in primaries. That is literally just a flat-out lie. The DCCC has endorsed many people. Like, they've endorsed incumbents against progressives, and they've endorsed people in open seats. And this is very hypocritical, especially for Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries is a huge, huge hypocrite. Want to know what Hakeem Jeffries did? He primaried somebody. His first election bid was trying to primary an incumbent Democrat in, like, the state house or something. That's always been their rule. They don't hate primary challenges. They hate left-wing primary challenges. That's the truth. And I know this because Hakeem Jeffries endorsed a primary bid. He endorsed Joe Kennedy III against Ed Markey. This guy is such a transparent fucking hypocrite that the fact that there isn't a single person who is ready to primary him is a problem. This guy 100% needs to be primaried out of his seat. I want to Justice Democrats him. I want to do it. That's one of my calling cards. Go to Hakeem Jeffries' district and primary him. Speaking of New York, we're going to talk about some New York things that happened. 2 very big races happened. The New York City mayoral race, and, well, we'll get to that one when we get to that one. First, the New York mayoral race was very interesting. The final results haven't happened yet, but apparently the results have been, like, there's enough of the results that some candidates have officially decided to throw in the towel. One of the most prevalent ones being Andrew Yang. Yang has officially conceded the race for New York City mayor. The race is now officially basically a race between Eric Adams, Maya Wiley, and Catherine Garcia. And a lot of people have given the indication that it's probably going to be Eric Adams. Now, I'm not exactly enthused about Eric Adams, but I am completely enthused with the fact that Andrew Yang actually screwed this up. Like, the fact that he screwed this up is hilarious to me. This was the easiest thing for him to do. This should have been... This is the kind of bid that people dream for. For those who don't know anything about Andrew Yang went from a political nobody to essentially having a cult on Twitter that got him so prevalent that he was like one of the final 6 presidential candidates in the Democratic primary. Him winning a mayoral seat should have been easy. It should have been almost impossible for him to lose. But he did. Because a lot of people figured out that the person they projected onto Yang is absolutely not what they got. They projected him to be this like super anti-establishment kind of guy. Like, oh, he's gonna go against the anti-establishment narrative and blah blah blah. When he gets the slightest pushback, he'll completely change his ideas. Even though they build him like, oh, he's like a hardliner, he knows what he wants. Like, he ran completely on like, oh yeah, the freedom dividend is going to cut some social security program. It's going to cut like these welfare programs, but instead they'll have a UBI program to instead counteract it. And then it'll be like, hold on, what? That's bad. But how's that bad? Because what they're making on their welfare programs is way more than what they make on the freedom dividend. And you're saying that they're now going to have less money. Oh yeah, you know what? These things actually stack on each other. Wait, but you ran your whole candidacy up to this point. You've been in the race since 2017. You've run your candidacy up to this point on the idea that it's like the Milton Friedman version of the freedom dividend. Now you're going on a socialistic version of the freedom dividend. Not even the freedom dividend, the UBI. You've literally changed what your UBI platform is. That's literally the equivalent of someone running on like single payer and then changing their mind and then saying, oh no, we're actually not going to do single payer, we're actually going to do a multi-payer system. Anyways, and then like one of the big things that made people want to turn to his candidacy was like the idea, like it's what got him like a huge fan base in the first place, that they thought he was this huge anti-Israel advocate. The alt-right really jumped on this idea like, oh, Trump gives our money to Israel, Andrew Yang won't give our money to Israel, he'll give our money to us. Really, because anti-Semitism. But, like, and they even went so far as, like, this is literally what it says. Here's exactly what happened. Andrew Yang was asked point blank, should all Palestinian refugees and their descendants have the right to return to Israel? Andrew Yang said yes. Then, when a guy pressed him, Andrew Yang said, thanks, Eric. It was answered by a staffer who I think misunderstood the question. I believe that Palestinians should have a say in their future, but I do not believe that all refugees and descendants have the right to return to Israel. Appreciate you calling it out. And it's like, you literally went back on your thing with this guy, Eric Weinstein didn't even push. Oh my goodness. Did he actually only push back because the guy's last name was Weinstein? Guy, when he quote unquote called Andrew Yang out, he literally just said, you just said you have to say more than yes. He literally then went back on his complete question. He was able to make himself look cooler than he was, but that clearly wasn't enough. So yeah, next story is a mayoral race that actually had very good results. You see, in Buffalo, India Walton managed to win the mayoral race as, like, she basically won the Democratic primary, which basically means that she will be the mayor. It's a heavily Democratic area, so naturally it's just going to naturally be a, like, Democrat win. So, and this is very interesting because it's poised to be the first mayoral win for a socialist in a major city since Frank Ziedler left office in 1960, and she was running on a very Ziedler-like platform, sewer socialism, democratic socialism, a more reformist form of socialism, the one that's basically gotten us our wins so far, and the one that we should continue doing because it's been getting us our wins, so what's the problem? To be slightly fair, technically many people have been decrying, because she won really only because her incumbent mayor was not really running an active campaign. In fact, he basically dodged her throughout the entirety of the bid, which I should be mad, but I'm actually not, because I'm glad that corporate Democrats just don't learn. This is exactly the same strategy that cost, Elliot Engel and freaking what's his name, Joe Crowley, their seats. Ignore the primary bid. So yeah, I'm down. I'm down for this. Let's go. Keep doing this, corporate Dems. I want to see you keep losing and then keep getting socialist wins. Now this guy actually is apparently starting to learn and is going to try and initiate a write-in bid in the general election. Again, much like Joe Crowley when he continued with the Working Families Party endorsement. Now, we'll have to wait and see if he actually pulls through with that. But I'm actually very interested to see another socialist win. I like to see it. You love to see it every single time. Okay, so now we're on to the main topic of this video, which is on a similar spiel, which I might actually change given India Walton. Endorsements. Now, as you may notice, election cycles happen all of the time. Elections will happen at every single point in the time period. So it's best that we start thinking about elections, try to expand progressive majorities so that we'll actually be able to enact our platforms on higher levels. And this episode is going to be doing just that. I'm going to be going over some races that your support will definitely be needed. Now, I'm going to start with originally I was going to just do 2021 races, but then I decided there's not that many that I'm really caring about that much at this particular moment. So we're mostly going to be focusing on the elections that'll, it's 2021 and 2022. So basically I'm going to go over all the ones that are currently on my website. For those who want a cheat sheet, they can just pull it up right now. So without further ado, let's get started. First, we all know the big one that everybody is focusing on, Nina Turner. For Ohio District 11 special election, we need her in the House of Representatives. She will be a fighter for progressive change. I guarantee you that, I can't even guarantee you this, but I would assume so, that if Nina Turner wins, she'll all of a sudden become the new face of the squad. She's a good fighter. I want her to win. Her win, and this is the thing, her win is almost guaranteed. However, just because I say it's almost guaranteed doesn't mean slack off. No, not in my house. Just because she's guaranteed to win doesn't mean we should slack off. The fact that she's guaranteed to win should be even more effort for us to get this done. She's got a 30-point lead, and we need to keep it that way. And the establishment sees her and are scared of her, and that's why they're trying right now to just simply try and change the race just like that. But I ain't having that, not in my house, no. Give her money, give her support if you can. You gotta get this woman in the house. Now, staying in Ohio, this is one that it's really just a personal thing for me, to be honest. Dennis Kucinich. He's running for Cleveland mayor. Now, Dennis Kucinich is a very interesting figure, to say the least. He's been a long-time progressive firebrand, and I've stated this before, and I'll say it again. He's probably one of my favorite members of the House of Representatives, along up there with Shirley Chisholm, Vito Marcantonio, Smyer London, Victor Berger, Bernie Sanders. You know that typical crowd. Those are probably my favorite members of the House of Representatives. Kucinich is up there because he's been a long-time progressive firebrand, and he's running for his. He used to be mayor of Cleveland, and he's actually there was this huge scandal that happened during this time, where a publicly owned utility was about to be bought out by some private companies, and then Kucinich decided that he was going to stop that any way he could, and that ended up saving his citizens millions of dollars. And even though that hurt, it didn't hurt the citizens in the short term actually, but the companies made it seem like it hurt in the short term. And I'd like to see Dennis Kucinich try and continue to be their mayor. There's also the New York City Public Advocate election, but that one's a easy Democrat win for Jermaine Williams. Now this one, I don't even necessarily think that you should support her. Maybe give her like Twitter followers and spread her platform, but, you know, let me explain. Princess Blanding of the Liberation Party in the Virginia gubernatorial race, she's a candidate running on black liberation. And she's basically like a progressive socialist alternative to, who are the people who are currently in the thing? It's freaking Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin. I might interview her at one point, but I don't know. Basically, she's the candidate for people who supported Lee Carter, who are a bit miffed that Lee Carter did not get elected. I think she should get support, and I think she should be allowed on the debates. I think she should be treated like a serious candidate, much like the other two. Her platform is very, very solid, and I think her being in the Virginia governor's race would be pretty cool. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, now let's talk about the 2022 elections, because those ones are going to be very interesting as well. And I expect this list to be growing even more so because we're still a decent number of, we're still a little bit away from the races going into full effect. So we'll have to wait and see how things play out. First, let's go over my incumbent endorsements. These are all the incumbents that I'm going to be supporting in the 2022 House elections. Ro Khanna, Raul Grijalva, Pramila Jayapal, Peter Welch, Barbara Lee, Mark Buchan, Jamie Raskin, Jared Huffman, Errol Blumenauer, John Yarmouth, James McGovern, Stan Schakowsky, Mark Tucano, Mark DeSalenur, Peter DeFazio, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Chewy Garcia, Ayanna Presley, Joe Neguse, Andy Levin, Cory Bush, Marie Newman, Teresa Legar Fernandez, Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, and Melanie Stansberry. Those are all the incumbent members of the House of Representatives that I will be endorsing. Now, keep in mind, these endorsements, every single one of them, are subject to change. I've endorsed people that I've changed my mind on before, and it'll happen again. I guarantee you one of these people is going to betray me at one point in the future, and that's fine. We'll have to wait and see how things play out. Honestly, I'd say the most controversial one of the ones I listed is probably, the Warren Dems, but I didn't really care. If they endorsed Warren, that's one thing. I'm more concerned with the actual, policies that they tried to push for in the House of Representatives. I don't really care if they, endorsed Warren or anybody else for that matter. Barbara Lee is one of the best members of the House of Representatives in this current moment, and she endorsed Kamala Harris. Yeah, that stinks, but what you gonna do? And there have been some people who did good, like Marcy Kaptur endorsed Bernie Sanders in the 2016 election, and she's not necessarily the best member of the House of Representatives. I'll even give you some names of some representatives that I used to like that I don't like anymore. Mike Levin seemed pretty cool. Turns out he's not. He's basically one of those, not even a Warren Democrat. What's less than a Warren Democrat? No, I really don't know what to say. He's, slightly less than a Warren Democrat. Then there was Jared Golden, who seemed like a very progressive option at the time. Turns out he's not. And Gwen Moore. Gwen Moore, I really liked for a little bit. But then came 2021, and the unveiling of the 2021 Medicare for All bill, which for some reason she wasn't co-sponsoring. And that was literally just sorry bro, that's it. You lost me. There are some things where it's make or break, and there's some things where it's okay, maybe I can give them a little bit of leniency here. It's really dependent. We'll always see. Let's say hypothetically, forced vote was successful, and there was a vote on Medicare for All in the House of Representatives, and the Progressive Caucus has officially decided this will be the legitimate vote. They will vote as if this will actually pass Medicare for All, and then half the people that I say don't vote for the bill. Then that's sorry bro, you out. I don't care if it's Roe. If something like that happened, then that's it. It's some things again are literally make or break, and some things are a bit more lenient. Now, before we go back to the House of Representatives, let's rewind Now we're going to talk about the Senate races, because there is one incumbent senator that I am endorsing in the 2022 elections, radical liberal Raphael Warnock. Now, I don't even know if I will be continuing to endorse Raphael Warnock in some point in the future, but honestly, he's like the least offensive of all the incumbent Democratic senators that is going to be coming up. I did really like his 2020 platform. Now, it's not like Raphael Warnock is like the best member, but basically what he is basically just a Democratic majority holder. Like, if there was hypothetically a Medicare for All vote on the floor, I could see him hypothetically voting for it, because he's spoken in favor of single payer previously, and I don't know what his specific position is now, because he hasn't really talked about the issue, but I think it's best for him to stay in. The focus should primarily be to make it so that there are more progressives in the Senate, because the Senate is a historically more moderate place, so it's better to have more progressive members in the Senate, because that can be considered one of our biggest hurdles, given the fact that the House of Representatives is more than likely to have a lot of socialists in it. They've elected way more socialists than the Senate has. But anyways, now let's move on to the next Senate race. North Carolina, I'm endorsing Dr. Richard Watkins III, a person that I will 100% be voting for. Richard Watkins is the guy that I really, really, really like. His endorsement is basically like both semi-personal and semi-not. Basically, like, yes, he is the best candidate in the race, but there's also one bit of historical thing about him, in that he was the person that I couldn't vote for. Basically, I was going to turn 18 in July. July 3rd is my birthday, but the primary was not on July 3rd or after July 3rd. It was before July 3rd, so I could not vote for the brand new Congress-endorsed Richard Watkins in the NC District 4 race. So, maybe this time will be different. Or maybe he'll drop out, and then I'll be forced to vote for Erica Smith, who I legitimately despise. Of all the candidates, I probably legitimately hate Erica Smith the most, because she is a fake progressive, so yeah, I legitimately don't like her. The next Senate race is the one that I'm putting one of the most biggest efforts into, John K. Fetterman for Pennsylvania. John K. Fetterman is basically progressive's best chance at a Senate seat, and let's take it. This guy is legitimately, like, he is the progressive's best chance at a Senate seat, and he's got this very interesting story that explains why that's the case. Okay, so basically he was a Democratic Socialist mayor of Braddock, and then he ran for Senate in 2016, and was basically like running as like, I'm the Bernie candidate. If Bernie becomes president, I'll be his biggest ally in the Senate. And then he didn't win, because a mayor running for Senate definitely did bring some trouble, especially considering there were two more high-profile candidates in the race. So Fetterman decided to change things up, and instead chose to run for lieutenant governor. The way that lieutenant governorships in Pennsylvania work is that they, in the primary, run on a separate ticket, like they run separate from each other, and then in the general election, they run on the same ticket. So basically what Fetterman did was that he was going to run for lieutenant governor of the incumbent, like, neolib, like, moderate, like, mainstream Democratic governor. And then when the general election rolls around, he basically has to force the, like, mainstream Democrats to like him. And it worked. And him, like, he's got a huge following now with, like, mainstream Democrats. And that's one thing that many people have seen as, like, a positive for Fetterman. He's, like, a uniter candidate. He's a socialist. He's a very open socialist. He's, like, he's got, like, the chops to basically be, like, trying to win over, like, working class, like, Republicans that went to Trump in the 2016 election. And like he's got the moderate Dems in the bag. Like he's basically a jack of all trades. He can get everybody on our side, and that's showing because he's currently winning in the seat. That doesn't mean slack off, obviously. We need to make sure that this guy actually gets into the Senate. But honestly, I would like to see this guy. I would like to see Fetterman as senator because he would definitely be a very good contender. And like, we really only need one. And if I have to pick one, I gotta pick Fetterman. Now, next is in the Wisconsin Senate race, Tom Nelson. Now, this one actually got very interesting because I actually got into a fight with Marianne Williamson in regards to this endorsement. Because she is endorsing someone by the name of Chris Larson, a person who was entered way later than Tom Nelson. And I basically said, I called her out on that, and basically like, there's already a progressive in the seat. I don't see why you feel the need to jump in and endorse this guy. Because I'd never heard of Chris Larson. Chris Larson seems to be an okay candidate, but Nelson was there first, and I gave Nelson a look first, so Nelson got my support. And she was like, well, I endorse the progressive. It doesn't matter who's in the race first. Nelson's like a corporate Democrat. And I'm like, do you have any evidence for that? Because I'd never seen any evidence of that. And Marianne, she's like, oh, well, my mistake. I guess Nelson's a fine candidate. And it's like, like, Nelson is a Bernie delegate, so I would assume he's progressive. He was endorsed by Our Revolution, so he seems progressive. Like, I mean, Larson might be a better candidate, maybe, but it's like, Nelson's here first, sorry. I already pushed people to solidify our support behind Nelson, so there's no reason for you to get involved. Okay, now in Arkansas, we have Dan Whitfield. Now, those who may remember Dan Whitfield might remember the fact that he was an independent candidate in the last cycle, and that is, like, now he's running as a Democrat, because that means that he will more than likely not be kicked off the ballot, because what happened to him last cycle, he was kicked off the ballot against Tom Cotton, and then basically people were like, oh, I guess we can't support you now, sorry. He's basically just changed his he's changed the I to a D. That's basically all that happened. He's on the same platform, same, like, whatever. Now, the next candidate is one that is probably a longer shot than the most. I mean, okay, Whitfield's a long shot. Nelson is kind of a long shot. Fetterman is, like, I mean, okay, a lot of these are long shots, but this guy is sort of like in a moderate shot, honestly. Because apparently there's some questions about the race, and the race might actually make it so that he's a bit more viable, but it's the Missouri Senate race, and I'm endorsing Lucas Kunce. Now, Kunce is really interesting because I originally was kind of hesitant to endorse him, but he did kind of start winning me over because I was looking into, like, oh, what did he do? And one of the big things that I found out that he did was that he was like the chair of like an anti-trust nonprofit. And that's sort of like one of his mainstay policies. Like, he's like trying to run as like one of those like rural Midwestern populists, I guess you could say, like a William Jennings Bryan or a James Weaver, something along those lines. Now, he has sort of leaned into the fact that he's a Marine, and that might seem like a bad thing, because like the thing about these Democratic guys in these states is that they usually like run like super like pro like gun or whatever. But Lucas Kunce actually did something interesting. Like, there was this ad that he did that actually did make me go, now that's actually a cool subversion, especially considering who he's running against.
I'm Lucas Kunce, and I'm running for U.S. Senate here in Missouri. You know what? Forget it. I don't have to do this type of thing. You know, I kind of got my fill of carrying one of these around in Iraq and Afghanistan. Stunts like that, those are for those clowns on the other side, like that mansion man Mark McCloskey. If you don't remember who I'm talking about, he's that guy who got his 15 minutes of fame waving one of these weapons of war around at a bunch of people who were walking by his mansion. And now, he somehow thinks that qualifies himself to be a U.S. Senator.
Yeah, that's that's very interesting. And definitely that gives Lucas Kunce a second glance. Kuntz is fine on a lot of other issues. One of his biggest things that he's pushing for is like this idea of like the Marshall Plan for the Midwest. And, that sounds like a very interesting idea. And I really do think that he would be a pretty decent senator, all things considered. So yeah, as of now, that's all the people that I'm endorsing for Senate. And I might say, aren't there some other interesting candidates running for Senate? Well, basically, here's my rules. I don't endorse exploratory committees, and I gotta make sure that they're legit. Like, for example, the Florida race. I've been looking at that race a lot, because that's a very flippable seat, apparently. But I gotta make sure all the candidates there are legit. Gotta make sure that we got one. And, me saying I don't endorse exploratory committees is obviously a hint at Charles Booker. But, Booker, the second that exploratory committee becomes a running committee, hit me up. So anyways, now let's move on to the House endorsements that are not incumbents. The ones that probably need your support a whole lot more. Now, there aren't that many now because, it's pretty early in the race. We still haven't gotten things to play out the way that we want them to. So, let's wait to see how things play out. Now, in Florida District 20, they have a special election coming up. And I'm going to be endorsing the guy by the name of Omari Hardy. For those who don't know who Omari Hardy is, he is a state representative that got into a heaping amount of trouble when this happened.
We should have been talking about this last week. We cut off people's utilities this week and made them pay what could have been their last check to us to turn their lights on in a global health pandemic. But you don't care about that and you didn't want to meet. But every other year you go around and beg people for their votes.
Can we explain
But you
the
care
reason?
more about your relationship with that guy than you care about the relationship with the people who don't go to work in this building.
Order, you were done.
Yeah. That is a very interesting development that happened. And I do believe that the fact that he's standing up for people is a very good thing to happen. And that earns my support. Especially considering he's probably going to be the largest progressive in the race, so it's better for us to get behind him than anybody else. Okay, so anyways, now there's Tennessee District 5, where we have Odessa Kelly. She is the first Justice Democrat in the 2022 election cycle. It seems that this one is set to be more of a, I don't know what you would necessarily call this. No, it's not really necessarily an out there challenge. But it's definitely more of a... I'm trying to find a way to compare this to a specific member of the squad, but I can't really think of one. I guess technically like Marie Newman, but even then, that's not even necessarily going to be the exact same one that I use. I'm like, I might use that example again. But it's like, that's definitely one of the things. Okay, so anyways, the next one is New York District 12, where we have Reina Abdelhamid. She is like a well-known member, like an activist for Amnesty International. She's the second Justice Democrat in the cycle, and one of the big things about her was that her race, the race that is in this seat, the last race, like this is actually one of the seats that I actually pushed for a progressive to run in, because the last race was incredibly close. Now, of course, that is because it's a three-person race, but in this one, it appears that there will also sort of be a three-person race. It's her, Suraj Patel, and Carolyn Maloney in this race. Last time it was Lauren Ashcraft, Suraj, and Carolyn. But basically, it's going to be another one. But basically, this time I'm hoping that Reina, being higher profile, will mean that she at least gets second place, so that it's better that we actually move forth and try to beat her. Especially considering Carolyn is, like, she literally supported a book called The Autistic Holocaust, and it's like, no. She's got the support of the Progressive Caucus, which is terrible, but, that's just how things happen. Anyways, now the next candidate is in Nevada District 1. We have Amy Valila. Like, I knew the second that I saw Amy Valila change her, background banner to Amy Valila for Congress, I was just like, yes, I'm on board. I don't care who you're primarying. I don't care. I'm on board. And apparently the person that she's primarying is apparently not that bad, but it's like, I don't care. I'm gonna care. Get on board. We need to make Amy Valila the next Marie Newman. or Cori Bush. We need this. For those who don't know who Amy Vilela is, I don't know where you've been, but it's nice to see you finally get involved in politics. Amy Vilela was a progressive candidate for Nevada District 4 in 2018, being one of the, forefront members of, what was supposed to be the squad, I guess. AOC, her, Cori Bush, and, Paula Jean Swearingen. Those people. And basically, here's what happened. She tragically lost her daughter due to the fact that she had a lack of health coverage. And they basically were like, hey, she decided to become an activist for Medicare for All, and then went to her congressman to ask for his support for Medicare for All. And while she was giving her, spiel and stuff and talking about it, he basically told her point blank, I heard your story today. I didn't have to be here tonight. I could have been out enjoying my weekend. He told that to her face while she was telling the story of how she tragically lost her daughter because she couldn't afford health insurance. And that's basically what kicked her to be like, fuck you, I'm going to primary you. And it apparently scared him to the point where he was just like, I can't continue running anymore. So yes, I'm 100% behind Amy, and we gotta get this woman in. I mean, I don't know if, I'll be honest, if I have to choose between her and Odessa, sorry, Odessa, sorry, bro. I know Jim Cooper's an objectively worse Democrat, but Amy Vilela is a way better candidate, I'm sorry. Now, the next endorsement comes from Maryland District 5. We have Michaela Wilkes. Now, Wilkes is running against Steny Hoyer. It's basically one of the big things. She is running against Steny Hoyer. That's one of her big things. I mean, that's essentially is her campaign. I don't know if this is going to be more successful than her last bid. She wasn't that successful in the last bid as well. Let's be real. But that doesn't matter. I think at every so often we do need one of those Don Quixote type candidacies. Yeah, maybe Michaela is never going to win against Steny Hoyer. But showing the fact that there are people who are dissatisfied with Steny Hoyer after 20 million years of him being in office is definitely a good thing. In Washington District 2, we have Jason Call. Now, Jason Call is I endorsed him in the last cycle, and he didn't do so well in the last cycle, but that doesn't really matter. I think that Call is a very interesting candidate. He follows me on Twitter. I think. Maybe. I think he does. I don't know if he follows me anymore, but he did at one point. And I mean, John Paul gets pretty lonely in Washington, so maybe it's time to give her some congressional backup. Just to make sure. Okay, next is Texas District 30. Now, this race is an open seat, so this one's actually a lot more likely to actually be in our favor. We have Jessica Mason. She's a U.S. Army veteran, a nonprofit coordinator, and anti-poverty activist. She's, the person that she's running to replace is not bad. But again, that person's not running anymore, so we basically gotta do with what we have. And Jessica's a very good candidate. Medicare for All, Green New Deal, PRO Act, ending the war on drugs, and decriminalizing sex work. I think that's a pretty good platform, if I have to say the least. She definitely should deserve our support. In Colorado District 4, we have Ike McCorkle. Now, this guy is never going to win. Let's be real. He's running in a deep red seat, so it's very unlikely he's going to win. But the person he's running against is a huge Tea Party lunatic by the name of Ken Buck. He's basically going to try and win again. Again, we don't know if it's going to win, but, it's good to try. In California District 21, we have Brian Osorio. He's the mayor of Delano, California, who is currently 25 years old. Now, this one is weird, because this seat was won by a moderate Democrat in the last cycle, not even the last cycle, in the 2018 cycle, but that moderate Democrat was running on a progressive platform Then when that guy didn't live up to that progressive platform, he was replaced by a moderate conservative who is now the current member of Congress. And it's potential that neoliberal will be running for the seat again. So yeah, I legitimately have no clue what the heck is going to happen. But I think Brian is probably a very good candidate to run in the seat. And now we've reached the latest endorsement that I have made. In Illinois District 7, we have Keena Collins. She is the third Justice Democrat of the cycle. And her seat is very interesting for a number of reasons. For starters, the person that is currently in the House seat is Danny K. Davis. Now, Danny K. Davis is interesting because he actually originally ran and served as a member of Democratic Socialists of America. That's a very interesting thing. But the thing is, there's been, theories. I don't even know if this is the truth. I haven't really seen a source that proves this as the case. But there's basically been a theory that he has let his membership lapse. And, I don't know if this is the case. Maybe he's still a registered DSA member. If that's the case, then he is being a very crappy DSA member because he literally voted to deregulate he voted to deregulate Wall Street. That's kind of a not-so-socialist thing to do, I'm afraid. And as such, that made him a target for some Democratic Socialists to run against him. Anthony Clark literally ran against Danny K. Davis as a member of DSA in 2018, and then again in 2020. However, in that 2020 cycle, Keena Collins also ran against both Clark and Davis. Now, I don't necessarily know the situation between her and Clark, but it seems that really the only difference between her and Clark is that, one, she's a woman, and two, she's not a socialist. That's essentially the only differences. She's a progressive capitalist. So, I wouldn't even call her an Ayanna Pressley, maybe? It's basically comparing AOC to Ayanna, or AOC to Roe. It's one's a socialist, one's not. But, if you gotta support any capitalist, progressive capitalist is probably the best bet. And she ended up getting more, votes. She ended up getting second as opposed to Anthony Clark's third. So that appears to be the reason why the Justice Democrats has now changed their mind and is now backing her as opposed to waiting for Anthony to try and run again. Although maybe Anthony might have said behind the scenes that he doesn't want to run. Basically, I don't know how things are playing out. But as of right now, it seems like Keena is the best candidate because she's the only candidate. Let's say, hypothetically, Anthony reveals that this was all a ruse and she's fake and blah, blah, blah. I've gotten some people say that she is fake, but I haven't really gotten any proof of that. She seems to be a fine candidate. I checked her 2018 platform, not 2020 platform, to basically see if she was legit back then, and she seemed to still be she was on the same progressive page. She did a joint interview with Anthony Clark on a Chicago radio show, and they're basically saying the same things. But she basically the only thing that really they differed on was her saying yeah, I'm not a socialist. But it's yeah, again, if you gotta support a progressive capitalist, this is basically let's say hypothetically Danny K. Davis is still a member of DSA. She's better than him. Doesn't matter if he's a member of DSA or not. Danny K. Davis stinks. She does not. So anyways, that's all I really gotta say about my endorsements as of right now. Give your support to these candidates if you can, and let's try and win, because big progressive margins means we can actually get results done. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or check my articles in the Independent Political Report.